It was between like midnight and 4 in the morning. We were in the basement of this hotel, which no one else at that time was anywhere around. In fact, we probably weren't even supposed to be in there. Nope, no vent, no window, no strange lights. None of that should have been there. And we came back with even more voices, answering questions with timing and relevance. This started the last 15 and a half years of research to see if we could get spirits to actually answer with timing and relevance and intelligence to the question we asked.
Today's guest is Tony Rathman. Tony is a researcher of ITC, Instrumental Transcommunication.
I'd get up and I'd say, no, none of this is real. This is BS. It's for entertainment only. And I'd walk away. Well, why did I think that? Well, growing up, my father was a physics instructor for 46 years.
He's the creator of the Staticom 3.0.
By Friedrich Jurgensen, who had done EVP work as well. He was out recording bird songs one day and got a voice that sounded like his father. And actually his father called him by his childhood nickname, Friedel. So he went from that to using DRV or direct radio voice. Direct radio voice is different from a spirit box because a spirit box will scan up and down radio. Direct radio voice sat on a vacant static channel. So we recreated it. And guess what? It worked.
So now for my conversation with Tony Rathman.
If you want to learn how I went from being a skeptical atheist who thought there was zero chance of an afterlife to a skeptical atheist who thinks an afterlife is highly probable, come check out my books. WTF Just Happened.
Today I'm speaking with Tony Rathman, ITC researcher. So welcome, Tony.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to this conversation and dive into questions and everything that we're working on.
Me too. I'm fascinated to hear more about this. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about how you got started and what you're working on now?
Sure. My name is Tony Rathman. About 15 and a half years ago, when paranormal shows started to come out, my wife really loved them. And she'd always say to me, come here and watch this with me. You're going to love this. I'd last about 2 minutes. I'd get up and I'd say, no, none of this is real. This is BS. It's for entertainment only. And I'd walk away. Well, why did I think that? Well, growing up, my father was a physics instructor for 46 years. So when I asked a question, Dad, why is the sky blue? I got a scientific answer. It's blue because of the effect of the ozone layers and because any moisture in the air, when the sunlight hits it, reflects. Blue's the most reflective color, so the sky looks blue. Nothing about ghosts, spirits, any of that. Well, then in 2010, on Valentine's Day weekend, I said to my wife, hey, Valentine's Day's coming up. What do you want to do? And she said, I want to go ghost hunting. And I was just like, oh, you're kidding me. But I had two choices. I could take her or have her mad at me until next Valentine's Day. I didn't
Easy
want
choice.
that. Right. It was the only choice I had. I didn't want that. So I did some real brief research online, found a hotel that had a reputation for being haunted. Now, granted, I didn't believe any of this. So I booked it for a weekend and thought, okay, I'm done. And then I paid a little bit more attention when she was watching shows. And I noticed, wait, they're using equipment. What is this equipment? So figured it out. And I went out and bought her a night vision camera, EMF meter, and digital recorder and thought, okay, I'm done. We went for the weekend. She had fun. I played along. I didn't act like I didn't believe any of it. I asked questions with her on digital recordings, took pictures, we videotaped. But it wasn't until she got the stuff home. When we were doing this, it was between like midnight and 4 in the morning. We were in the basement of this hotel, which no one else at that time was anywhere around. In fact, we probably weren't even supposed to be in there. But to make a long story short, when we brought everything home, she started reviewing it. And what caught my attention the most was EVPs, physical answers with timing and relevance to the questions that we asked. That shouldn't be there. There was no one else around in physical form. There were no other people. So I started looking at it, and we had lots of them. And I said, maybe there's an air vent that sound was coming through and the digital recorder picked it up. Let's go back and take a look. But there were also things in photographs, weird shadows, weird lighting that I can't remember being there. I said, let's see if there's an outside window that was shining light in the basement. Let's see if there's a vent where voices were maybe coming through. So we went back again. Nope, no vent, no window, no strange lights. None of that should have been there. And we came back with even more voices, answering questions with timing and relevance. This started the last 15 and a half years of research to see if we could get spirits to actually answer with timing and relevance and intelligence to the question we asked. So we went from EVP, we then dove into ITC, or instrumental transcommunication, which is basically supposed to be a two-way version of EVP. EVP is considered record and review, meaning you put the device down, you ask all your questions, then you go home, load it to your computer, you try to denoise it, maybe amplify it, do whatever you can do to try to hear it better. We built spirit boxes, never sold a one, but built them for 12 years, increased the clarity of them on each build. But what we couldn't rectify was the length of speech. We would get a word, 2, 3, sometimes short sentences if we were lucky, but we couldn't increase that. And then as the years went by, we partnered with some former people. We're no longer together, but they had gone back through history and researched every ITC method that was used. And they looked at it from a perspective of which methods produced results, which ones weren't debunked or considered to be fake. And the method that they came back with was a method known in Europe as direct radio voice, which was basically determined that voices could be captured by Friedrich Jurgensen, who had done EVP work as well. He was out recording bird songs one day and got a voice that sounded like his father. And actually his father called him by his childhood nickname, Friedel. So he went from that to using DRV, or direct radio voice. Direct radio voice is different from a spirit box because a spirit box will scan up and down radio. Direct radio voice sat on a vacant static channel. So we recreated it, and guess what? It worked. So from there, we said, okay, we have to get rid of the low-hanging fruit that science absolutely dismisses all of this process for. That being you're using a radio. You can't claim with certainty that you're getting voices from the other side if your device is a radio, because it is made to take RF signal in the atmosphere and turn it into speech or music. And the question is, how do you determine reception from deception? Great point. Then the second main complaint was from scientists, from academia, from skeptics, is you're hearing warbles and artifacts of sound or stray radio waves. But until there's clarity to it, no one's going to take it seriously. Your mind is pattern recognizing, trying to make sense of what you're hearing, and you're making yourself think you're hearing something that doesn't exist. So those are the two methods we went after: removing the radio and clearing the speech. When we moved the radio out of the equation from direct radio voice and replaced it with a pure white noise live producing generator, our voices remained, and we removed any ability to have it pick up radio wave, because a white noise generator can't do that. It's a computer circuit, some resistors that create every sound from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, which is what human hearing is. And we found we could still receive full communication with that method.
Okay, I have so many questions. First,
Sure.
I'll just ask you about the hertz. So, do you think those, given that these are coming from non-physical consciousness on the other side, do they vibrate at a different hertz, their voice abilities, and then
Yes.
this helps reach a hertz that would be within our sound range?
That is perfectly said. Yes,
Okay.
it is outside of human hearing. So what we did, there is a use of white noise called stochastic resonance. And what stochastic resonance is used for is to take an undetectable sound signal, whether it be to human hearing or even a sensor, and it elevates that sound to certain degrees. Well, we elevated it to a point where we could hear it with our human ears. And that is the exact process under which we believe this method works.
And they are at a higher frequency of sound than we are, not a lower, correct?
That is probably correct. I don't know that for a fact because when we get into this, there are so many variables outside of our understanding that we take theorized guesses at what we think is occurring. But I personally would agree that they're higher frequencies than what we are capable of hearing. So when we removed the white noise generator, we did a bunch of things, but Staticom allows for live two-way communication. So when we were talking about EVP, that it's record and review, and then you got to go to your computer and do all these processes to try to hear it, we made Staticom do that all live in real time. So it denoises, it cleans up, it pulls any communication that it identifies and separates it. But the process of stochastic resonance occurs during this. So what we believe happens is their physical voice may not be a sound wave to begin with, but within the system, it becomes a sound wave, which is what allows white noise, which is a sound, to interact with their sound wave and elevate it. Then what we do is it goes through all the filtering, and they're only filters. They're filters used like if somebody was creating a record. There is nothing, there's no word banks, there's no AI voice generation, there's no, there's radio wave, there's no mic, nothing. It's a closed circuit system. So then the voice gets elevated. And so white noise has a spectral frequency of 1, meaning every sound from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz is at the same level. When the stochastic resonance occurs, the voice overlaps a handful of frequencies, whatever they're speaking at, and then it raises it up. Then we go through and we cut the white noise out at the bottom, leaving only the voice.
And the Staticom does this automatically. They don't
Correct.
send it into you. Okay.
Nope, does it live and allows for two-way communication back and forth.
Oh my God. Okay. We're going to be talking a lot about all of this.
Sure.
But I want to back up to, you said the very first time you were with your wife. Am I right? When you first heard the sounds, you were in this hotel and you were asking questions just for fun.
Correct.
And what did you have recording? Was this, you had just your phone app, or were you taking
a digital recorder, a Tascam digital recorder?
Okay. And it was just fun. And then you played it back and heard the voices later, but you didn't hear them in live time.
No,
and
did not.
What was an example of some of the questions you asked, and what were the answers you got?
Well, one of them that just absolutely struck me phenomenally was I asked, do you know my name? And it showed up first and last on the recorder. I didn't know they answered, but a few questions later, I said, can you tell me your name? And I got one. The name was Candy. And I was absolutely dumbfounded. I needed to figure out, how is this happening? There was like I said, no one else up at that time. There were actually only 2 other guests in the entire 117 room hotel when we were there. And they weren't up at 3 a.m. in the basement. The staff was one person at the front desk and we weren't there. So yeah, that absolutely blew my mind. How was my name answered with timing and relevance to what I asked? And then a couple of questions later, I said, what's your name? And I got Candy as the response. So this is what started 15 and a half years of this.
Did you ever research who Candy was?
No, because I never got a last name.
Okay.
So that makes it really tough. We went through history. We always try to back up anything that we capture with research. Now, that was much tougher in EVP. It was a little bit easier with direct radio voice, became easier with each version of Staticom 2.0, and is very possible today with our newest version, Staticom 3.0.
So you were super skeptical like I was. You had this first experience. And what did you do after that? Did you just completely delve in, start researching?
No, I spent the first 3 months after hearing these 2-trip answers trying to debunk it. I'm like, this can't be possible. There's got to be a reasonable answer that's explainable how these voices got on there. But by the end of a month or 2 or 3, whatever it was, I was getting really frustrated because I couldn't find it. And I did massive amounts of research, finding why most EVPs are not taken seriously, the warbles and artifacts of sound, the fact that recorders can, if you amplify stuff, that it can become artifacts of sound, becoming where your brain thinks it's hearing speech. Then you've got theories like second sound theories, where recorders can actually pick up something your ears can't hear, but it's just a secondary vibration of sound. But none of those answered the question how I got an answer with timing and relevance and intelligence to the question I asked. And through that whole process and years of going through it, that's what started us down this road.
And then you went and did paranormal investigation before delving into your main work.
We started out in our own state. We covered every location in Arizona. Then we branched out to Nevada, California, New Mexico. And then after that, we started going all over the country, East Coast, Midwest, mountain area, and Pacific. Every place we could find when we had free time to go. From there, it branched into international. We've done investigations in Japan. We've done investigations in the Philippines, and just some amazing stuff, especially when you could get multiple languages. And the good part was my wife speaks 3. She speaks English, Japanese, and Tagalog, the native language of the Philippines. And we got answers in all of those. In fact, we even got Latin when we were in the Philippines at the Diplomat Hotel, which was just awesome. But that's how this all began to grow and evolve and brings us up to what we're doing today.
Fascinating. And so on those paranormal investigations, you would bring more what you were using, like an old school recording device.
Correct. We started with what was traditionally used until we started ripping spirit boxes apart so I could understand the exact way it was functioning. The problem with the spirit box was that, Frank Sumption did a great job when he invented it. But there were 2 problems that occurred. The first one was that a much more effective method, and I know a lot of people won't like me saying this, but direct radio voice got overlooked. Basically, in the United States, if it's not on TV, nobody pays attention. Well, spirit boxes are what flooded the television shows, and people paid attention to that. But the theory is that spirits would rearrange the fragments of audio from the radio stations, the bits and pieces, to create their own sentences. In our research, we determined that was not true. In fact, the reason we could never elongate the speech was that every time a radio station was hit, the white noise stopped and their ability to communicate ended. So it wasn't the radio stations. And we had some suspicion of that when we would hear that when the voices came through, they were above or below the frequencies where the radio station was at. They weren't in the same range. So that's when we decided to test straight white noise. And sure enough, the voices lengthened, continued, and we worked on that from there, getting them clearer.
Fascinating. And so when you were on these earlier stages of your investigation, you were, as a fellow skeptic, I don't think you instantly have one or two experiences and change your mind. Was there what I've had along the way, lots of major, what I refer to as the what the fucks, huge turning points that take me from one level of skeptical to a little closer. Was there, what would you say was the most mind-blowing experience on your early stage?
The first one, of course, was the ones where they called me by name. I didn't say my name. That was the first one, but there's so many after that. Longer messages that we got. Shadow figures. We have a 3D shadow figure that we caught. We used to run the old Phelps Dodge Hospital for about 3.5, 4 years, well known for being haunted. And we caught on DVD cameras that we set up in the hallways this 3D figure, human-like figure that walked out of the sunlight where a shadow could have been possible, but it was the second story, 20 feet up of this hospital. So nobody outside could have cast a shadow in. But when it walked out of the sunlight into the darkest part of the hallway, walked up to the camera, turned around and walked back, that blew my mind. Absolutely blew my mind.
This was caught on a visual camera.
Correct. Correct.
Fascinating. Great. And so then you moved on, you started doing, remind me of the next step. You were done with the paranormal investigations and you began to focus on ITC and EVP, but that was before you developed your Staticom 3.0, correct?
Correct. So what happened we're still investigators. We still do it, but it's switched from just going to see if we can capture a voice to realizing that there is so much more to this. When we first started, it was let's get the best captures we can get of spirit voices. It has evolved way past that. This is no longer about proving a spirit can speak. This went from what was seeing if a ghost can speak to the realization that this is about consciousness. This is about the fact that we believe, absolutely survives death. It has gone from ghost hunting to an in-depth study of what life is about. And that then transitioned into what the afterlife is about. And then that transitioned into what is consciousness? How does it survive through both life and death? How is it connected to the universe and everything we perceive? And if you look at what science is doing today, you had your standard materialistic physicalism science, and every step forward is evolving. If you go from materialistic science to quantum physics, from quantum physics to what basically is termed quantum consciousness or theory, is that consciousness then becomes a major player. And even Tesla said, if you want to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And the other thing he said was, if science would look at phenomenal-based or non-material-based study, they'd learn more in a decade than in the history of science. And that actually today is the path that it's going, and consciousness continues to be a root. So we had to reevaluate what we believed, how we believe it occurred, and we adopted an idealism called analytic idealism, which says that consciousness is the ontological primitive of life. It is there before, it is there after. You are a fractional portion of universal consciousness when you're alive. Everything you learn gets transferred back to universal consciousness when you pass. That's all shared information with every spirit or consciousness, whatever word you want to use, that's there. That's how they answer our questions. And that allows universal consciousness to grow, because a single mind couldn't grow itself. The individual experiences you have in life, even though life is subjective only to you, you can only experience it through yourself. When everyone else's experience, even though subjective, of something you do, that influences everyone else around you when you do it. Those collective experiences then create meaning. And that meaning is what then is the effective principle to grow universal mind. That's what we believe anyway.
And what makes you think that? Have you spoken with consciousness on the other side and asked them about what it's like?
Yes. One of the questions I flat out asked was that if I'm human and I have vocal cords and I'm creating sound waves in the atmosphere, but they're not human. They don't have human ears. I wanted to know, how do you hear me speak? And they replied, well, the first thing they said was, we call it death, which literally to me meant, we've transitioned. We're on the other side. But the response after that was energy of the mind. That's the thing. So it has nothing to do with my actual vocal cord vocals. In fact, then when we started researching that, there are times when doing EVP research that the answer would show up on the recorder before I even finished asking it, sometimes before I even asked it. That's a perfect indication of how they're getting the information through my consciousness back to universal. It has nothing to do with my vocals. And then you've got the scientific study, which falls under the major umbrella of survival theory, that consciousness does survive death. And that answer fits to a T.
What do you think it says, what you said about the consciousness kind of all uploading to one universal consciousness? What do you think that says about our individuality? Are we still ourselves, even if we live multiple lives? Like, are we still us, versus someone we really love and hope that they're themselves too?
Okay, I'll answer that the best I can based off of the research we've done. We believe personality exists. Who you are now, what you think, what you feel moves over. When we've done live sessions of this for groups, in fact, we were just in Phenomicon, did a live session for about 40, 50 people. We had people literally drop to their knees off their chair because of the responses, the question they asked, the response that came through. They recognized the voice. The answer blew them away, and they were literally in tears, crying. So we believe that whether you're fractional portions of the universal or combined back with it, that individual personality can still be portrayed through voice, through personality, whether it actually is still fractional or whether it's part of the one mind, that we can't yet answer. But we can ask for a specific person or a specific entity and have them respond.
Interesting. Okay. And is it so good that you can have a conversation like you and I are having now? I assume it's probably not like that. Like I just call my dad and be like, hey, so I could just talk to my dad and be like, hey dad, so, I'm stressing about this thing related to my job. What do you think? And he would just say, well, whatever he would have said here.
It does work that way, but we've also found out, and we call them universal laws, because every single one of them follows these laws. And similar, I've asked that question. I have 2 jobs. Which one should I take? Crickets. No response whatsoever. Spirits, what's the winning Powerball numbers for next week? Crickets. No answer. And we've asked every other question under the book. They will not give you any information about the future. Why? We believe that we are here to learn, to grow, and to evolve as individuals. We have free will, so we're allowed to make mistakes. And from those mistakes is where that knowledge and meaning comes from. But they have never answered any question about future. Things in the past, we've done tests where we randomly Googled 100 history questions, and answers came in at about an 87% correct rate to every question we asked.
So I could ask, hey, Dad, like, what was the name of, I can test it, like our first two cats. Like,
Correct.
tell me your favorite joke. Like,
correct. And you will get those answers. I can ask, what street did I grow up on when I was a kid, and get that answer. And then people say, come on, you're going to tell me that you can talk to consciousness who's no longer here on Earth? Yes, I'm telling you it's possible. I have spoken to my grandfather, who passed away when I was like 13. My wife, unfortunately, lost her mother during COVID about 3.5 years ago. Her mother not only responded, she responded to my wife in native Tagalog language and called her by her childhood nickname that her mother called her.
wow. This is fascinating. I'm going to have to test this. And you've spoken to some known people too. Well, first of all, let me actually ask, can you just talk to anyone? Can anyone do this? And how do you ask? Am I just like, hey, Dad, hey, Grandpa, and they'll just come in?
Well, it's based on a lot of things. It's based on your personal perception. What do you believe? Do you believe it's strong enough that they're going to know that it's okay? Most people say, well, I've tried this. I didn't get any answer. And then I'll say, well, how many tests have you done? And what's your personal background or theological thinking behind whether spirits exist, whether they survive conscious? Well, I don't know. I've never seen anything to prove it. Okay. If you do not believe, if they don't know that you believe, they're probably not going to say anything. If they can't be 100% sure that you're not going to freak out, go crazy, and they're probably not going to do it, because that's going to change your history, your future, what you're here to learn. You have to believe. So the person asking the question, that's part of it. The other thing people ask me is, well, can you use any type of equipment? Well, voice from spirit has been captured on everything from the single wire recorder to every recorder after that, all the way up to digital today, to phonographs, telephones, both cell and landlines, every electronic device, computers, text messaging. But so that answer is correct. They can manipulate lots of electronics. But we believe that the electronics themselves are about 40% of the equation. The other 60% is the operator. There has to be a set of knowledge, skills, and ability to accept the answers for it to work the way that it should. When Marcello Bocci, one of the only people doing direct radio voice, was pulled into a scientific lab, they pulled his vacuum tubes out of the radio one by one, trying to see where the voices would stop being able to respond, because that was the mechanism of which the voices from the radio came through. The voices never quit. The only thing they could record to get the voices to stop coming through were Marcello himself. When they removed Marcello, left the DRV in the machine, voices quit because Marcello wasn't there.
Interesting. Now, how would someone like me do? Like, I'm an atheist. I've researched this strongly. I think an afterlife is like 95% probable. When I first started, I thought it was almost impossible, but I was researching very, science-minded and open-minded. Would it work with someone in that sense who's like researching, or even a completely neutral researcher who doesn't think yes or no and is just literally going in completely scientific?
Well, I think so, depending on what you ask and depending on how specific the answer is. Yes, we believe it does. Like I said, when we were running a live last week, we had 40, 50 people in the room asking questions across the boards. And there was probably 75, 80% response rate. The other thing we've tested in the past, because we believe spirits are non-local, meaning there's a non-locality to them. We've tested it online. It works. We are now in the process of being able to see if we can, because when we got done with the last phenomenon that we did, we were inundated with people going, how do I get more time with this? So we're now in the process of setting up the ability for people to book half hour, 2 hours to actually interact directly with it. And I'm doing tests this weekend to make sure that the answers are as prevalent in person as they are online. But depending, like I said, on what you're asking, how you're asking it, and what you believe, yeah, pretty much anybody can ask and have a very high percentage of getting a response. And then for the ones that don't, because we have had that happen, if I take their question and I ask it for them, then the response shoots right through.
And are these devices people can buy or rent, or is it a service?
Right now, no. There are two of them, both mine right now, that exist. There are older methods that are out there, but they lack clarity. It's harder to hear. You'll get a clear answer here and there, but the newest version we created, every answer is clear. Even the soft whispers in the background, you can hear everything said. But no, it's not available to buy yet. One of the hardest things in doing research like this is that you literally butt heads with science, because science says when the brain dies, the body dies, consciousness dies.
Right.
We fight religion, and it doesn't matter what religion, but they say you're speaking to demons, you're not allowed to speak to ghosts, spirit, so they don't like it. The people who believe in ITC are impressed, but they don't like it when you don't reveal every aspect of how it's being done, so they're mad at you. And then skeptics say, oh, he's faking it, he's making this up, and they're mad at you. So it's hard to work through all of those situations to show, hey, I'm not trying to convince you. All I'm showing you is what we're capable of capturing.
Hey, everyone. I'm really excited to let you know about the science and spirituality salons I'm now hosting. During these intimate events, a scientifically verified psychic medium will give all of you readings, and I will give a talk on the science and evidence that changed my mind about an afterlife. This will also be an amazing opportunity to get to meet some of you in person or virtually, and to share more about all the science and data that transformed my worldview and got me through my worst days. These can be hosted in your home, in a nearby cafe with a private room, or they can even be virtual. I've hosted a few already, and they were really special, fascinating, emotional, evidential. So if you're interested in getting a small group together over dinner, brunch, drinks, coffee, to learn more about the science and to get evidential medium readings, send me an email at hello@wtfjusthappened.net and put science and spirituality in the title.
And why won't you reveal every way it's been done? Is that like so no one steals your idea, like the way a normal business wouldn't reveal it?
That's actually not the biggest reason. The biggest reason is the world ready for this? What will it change? It will conflict and make science rethink. It will destroy many aspects of religion, which has been taught for centuries. It will change what people think about the meaning of life and the fact that what occurs after. What's going to happen to something as simple as like a court trial? If somebody was fighting somebody else on somebody's will, and you could actually get that person to respond and say, no, it wasn't supposed to go there, it was supposed to go here. How is that going to change I don't know. But
a murder trial, you can ask who did it?
And we absolutely want to use this for cold cases because that is something that has happened in the past, and those answers can be supplied. Who did this? Matter of fact, there's the clip that I sent you that we had a friend in politics in the Philippines literally shot and murdered, point blank range, captured on CC television. And when my wife came in and said Lenin was shot, I said, what? Well, I had just finished the last upgrade. Staticom made a statement about Lenin. I said, hold on, go get your phone. Let's record this and ask questions. Not only did they answer every question we asked, they told us who did it, first and last name, gave us additional information about who did it. Now, we released that. We weren't going to release it. We thought we were just going to hold on to it. And then we decided, no, let's release it before any other information comes out. The problem is that the percentage of murders that get solved in the Philippines is about 0.005%. So we can't physically prove it yet.
And it probably shouldn't be admissible in court yet. There's a lot more research, but moving along those lines, if we can get that would.
Well, but then you're going to look at who's going to want to acquire it and for what reasons. FBI, governments, military, those are scary because what it's going to be used for. Now, I'm hoping that consciousness is smart enough to know these aren't the right people. I don't know. But that's another reason. The third reason is that we're trying to get this accredited to some degree if possible, but science won't touch it. Even though we now have a means of replication of paranormal activity. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Those voices are always there. And no matter when I can turn it on, I can just listen to them speak. I don't even have to speak. Or I can then ask a question and have them respond with timing, relevance, and intelligence. This is repeatable. And I would think at some point, science will no longer be able to ignore that.
I hope. It's fascinating. I'm so curious to research this more. Well, I also want to ask, about speaking to not only your loved ones, but known people, from what I understand and from some clips you sent me. And if it's okay, can I share those clips in the show notes for our listeners to hear some of the clips?
Please do, because without actually hearing how it functions, without having knowledge of that we're talking, this is clear conversation as you and I are talking now. Yes, please include them.
Okay, so all of you can listen. I will put them in the end of this episode. And also, if you prefer to see the videos, I'll put them as clips on social media, on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube,
awesome.
and on our website. So
awesome.
You spoke with Marcello Bocci, and myself researching this, I know he's a pretty big name, and you talked about him here. He's one of the first. What years was he active? But he was a big researcher of ITC in the very early days of it. What?
Correct. Friedrich Jurgensen, who discovered this, that was in the 50s. Friedrich Jurgensen passed it on to Konstantin Faraday. Faraday did his own tests, both with EVP and DRV. Marcello Bocci learned from Konstantin Faraday, and he's the most well-known for it because he would literally hold public sessions, bring people into his home that had lost children or loved ones, and they could ask their own questions and get responses. So he did this for about 35 years, running direct radio voice. And that was why we started with that method to not then progress it to Staticom today.
So interesting. So you've been speaking with Marcello Bocci on one of these. What year did he pass? Do you remember?
I'm going to guess. 87, I think.
80s, yeah. Around then. Okay. And have you learned anything fascinating from him? What are the types of conversations?
Well, you got to remember, too, though, that there's a progression of the Staticom. So from DRV, I think we had one really great response, which was Marcello Bocci. but the system had many flaws in it. And keeping that conversation going was very tricky. We solved some of those when we went to Staticom, and a few more when we went to Staticom 2.0. But 2.0 would give us the opportunity to ask 1, 2 questions, and then the voices would disappear. And that could disappear for a minute, 3 minutes, 3 days, a week, or sometimes even longer. So then my wife and I said, okay, we got to figure this out. Why is this occurring? How can we correct it? Staticom 3.0, the voices never disappear. We can ask questions. We've done hours of sessions and get responses. Now, is it always the same voice? No. They will vary. It's shared information, we believe. So anybody can answer a past question that we're asking. When people ask us, how do you know for sure who you're talking to? Well, the fact of the matter is we don't. That gentleman identified himself as Marcello Bocci, but I don't have spirit caller ID. I'm only dealing with vocal data. There's no imagery. Could something be faking? It could. So there's a lot of variables to know for sure. But when speaking to him, that was when he responded, and I think you have that clip to add to the end. But my wife asked and said, Marcello Bocci, you use this method. It's working. Do you have something you'd like to say to us? And he replied, I'd say glad to meet you. Now, the great thing about vocals is that I can tell if it's male or female. I can tell if it's an adult or child. I can tell what language they're speaking. He replied in English. But I can also tell if they have a territorial accent or dialect. Even though he was speaking English, you can hear that Italian dialect in the words he's speaking English. That was mind-blowing to us. But you can get a mountain of information from the response and be able to determine things before you even listen to what was said. So that's what's another fascinating aspect of this method.
And have you spoken to any other, well-known famous people? For example, I would imagine Henry James. And if our listeners don't know who he is, he's a really renowned researcher of the afterlife. He's one of the founders of the Society for Cyclical Research in the 1800s, studied the medium Leonora Piper. So look him up. He's one of the original, real serious afterlife researchers. And so I would think, have you spoken to him or any of the other kind of renowned researchers?
Henry James, no, not yet. We've gotten messages that we think may have been Tesla, a couple that may have been Einstein. Do we know that for 100% accuracy? No, we don't. The other problem with reaching out to known people is it's been so demolished by people in the paranormal reaching out to Michael Jackson or celebrities so we try not to promote that. If we get them and we can somehow verify either the information said or something that can be verified, we'll share it. But we don't go after something that looks like it's for likes and wows, because that's not the purpose of this.
No. I mean, I think in and of itself, I can't think of a bigger like or wow than communicating evidentially with deceased people. I mean, that's just that in of itself.
But it still has to be done in a way that can be explained. Simple things like I could see footprints in the snow, not snow here in Arizona, but anyway, in the snow outside my front door. And I could physically think, okay, somebody came up to my front door, was going to ring the doorbell, but then decided maybe they're busy or it's too early, I don't want to wake them up, and walked away. By the same definition of evidence, I could make something up that totally goes in circles, say, well, an alien ship landed, they walked into the neighbor's house, stole a pair of shoes, walked over to the mine because they wanted popcorn, then decided before they came in the house, they wanted peanuts instead, so they went back to their ship and flew away. You're going around in circles with information that literally can't be proven or disproven, but isn't a straight line to what the evidence points to. And we try very hard to stay to that when trying to define what we believe is occurring with Staticom and the voices.
And I do have to ask you, mention some big people coming in. Yeah, I wouldn't care about talking to celebrities. I would be obsessed with talking to Einstein. Anyone who listens to my podcast knows I'm obsessed with asking questions, and poor Einstein would probably be hiding from me because I wouldn't stop. But did you, I would think once in a while, maybe a type of known person who's dedicated to research and science might come through. And you said you thought Tesla and you thought Einstein might have come through.
Possibly,
did they,
right.
Possibly. What makes you think it was them, and what did they say anything of value?
Nothing. Well, the biggest one we heard was that Tesla actually responded saying something along the lines of, "I will reach out to you further." Now, has that occurred since? No. Can we absolutely identify that that's who it was? No. But only time will tell if he does. The other major advancement was the advancements made to Staticom 3.0 and not letting the communication drop off, because it is literally two-way and can happen until either A, they don't want to speak anymore, or I shut the method down. That conversation can continue. Everything prior had its limitations in how much would be said before the voices were lost. The research is planning to go down those roads further, but because it's my wife and I right now, we did sign contracts with a Brazilian-based ITC researcher named Samuel Andrate. Contracts have been signed. We are going to take what's been developed with 3.0, push it into 4.0, and hopefully beyond. But we have been so busy with the research, with the development of the system itself, that the research of it has suffered. And we want to be able to refocus time to get the data that we're looking for. And that will happen. But like I said, it's all a matter of time. And then you got public people going, I want an hour with this. How do we do? So we're trying to balance all that, and it's tricky.
Right. Yeah. And so what type of research, what is like an ideal research experiment you'd be hoping to do with the controls and plans?
We were able to accomplish pretty good ones already.
Okay.
But one of the, tests about how do you hear me speak, and then people will say, well, did you ask where they're from? Well, time and space is a human construct. If they're non-local or non-locality, time and space doesn't exist for them. So answering questions like, tell me where you're at. That's like me saying to you, Liz, do you like ice cream? And you say, yeah. I said, well, without using time, tell me when you had your last bowl of ice cream. A simple question becomes an impossibility. You can't say 2 hours ago. You can't say yesterday. You can't say last week. You can't say, that's all time-based, which is a human construct. It's impossible.
Right.
So, there's certain questions that we don't know the variables involved, which make extremely hard to answer. But one thing we did get science to do was to take a look at the equipment, the actual physical electronics. They absolutely said, I'm not dealing with anything with the voices or the paranormal. That's not what we do. But they evaluated every aspect of the system and then broke it down and said, we're going to break this into two sections. You've got the white noise generator is A, and every other piece after that is B. He said, I have absolutely no concerns at all with B. He said, but A, the white noise generator, he said, is plastic encased. It's effective to EMI interference, electromagnetic interference. He said, could it possibly interpret some sort of wave under unique circumstances? Yeah. So then he said, here's what I want you to do. Encase this white noise generator. Of course, I didn't want to do that to the one I had, so I built a new one from scratch. Encased it in a steel EMI resistant metal casing. Then he said, then wrap that in military grade Faraday material. Then take the grounding wire that would ground to the case, drive a 10-foot pole about 1.5 to 2 feet in the ground, and ground the grounding for that to the pole in the ground. And he said, if you still get voices, I'll be impressed. We did that. Guess what? The voices didn't change at all. So the next test would be a full Faraday room where we can be in the room as well, all signals blocked. But Faraday only takes out higher signals. So you need to make sure you're blocking the lower electromagnetic ones as well. So it'd probably be a combination now that it's encased and grounded, then going into the Faraday room to absolutely assure that no other signal. But even if the signal was coming from an electromagnetic interference or possibly a wave, which we know it based off of the tests we've done that it's not, but that DJ, if it was a radio wave, would have to have psychic abilities beyond belief to answer my question with timing and relevance, like my name, what I did last night, what I had for dinner, and how he'd hear my voice. Since when we do this, we don't use a mic. There's no amplification or radio signal conversion of my voice. I speak in the normal tone of voice in my house, like if I was speaking to my wife, but yet responses come in. So there's a million other tests to be done, depending on if science will literally break that boundary and take a look, but even where this information is coming from, how fast it's coming in. Could that change internet speeds? Could we move away from fiber optic cables and develop a new method of information transition? I mean, the doors just keep possibly opening based on what can be learned from this.
You know, it would be an amazing experiment to do with it twofold. It's way too expensive. It's not going to be done, at least probably in our lifetimes, but sending one out into outer space at different speeds, what happens when you send it? We've been able to break the sound barrier. What happens if you have it at all different speeds, even going past the sound barrier? And that would be amazing.
It would, to see what occurred. But then there's simple things too. Like people ask, did you ask how the pyramids were built? Did Atlantis exist? I mean, I could literally spend the rest of my life just asking questions that have society, human race has gone after for millennia. But the biggest one is, what happens when we die? That is a question not a person on the planet wants to know, and we're able to get responses. We asked them, what do you like to be called or termed? Their answer was spirit or consciousness. That's what they replied.
Interesting. Well, I got it right. I use consciousness.
You did. But then the other question people ask is, well, how do you know you're speaking to spirits? Well, because that's what they referred themselves as. But does that keep extraterrestrials from being able to communicate with it? Or Bigfoot or cryptids or any other intelligence? We don't know the answer to that. Those are other tests that could be done. In fact, we had this just outside Skinwalker Ranch last week, trying to see what we could get. But unfortunately, the power adapters that we were using and the car 120 volt wasn't enough to power the system, so we didn't get that opportunity to turn it on.
I'm going to ask first a very simple question, then get into the more complex about consciousness. Can you communicate with animals? Just say, like, bark twice if you're with me still? Or
there was a clip of a gentleman who asked that exact question, called his dog by name who had passed, and said, if you can understand me, bark. It wasn't more than a second or two, and that dog barked loud. It was recorded. Everybody heard it. I also have another researcher who is diving into that, where if the animal is asleep or anesthetized, going through some sort of surgery, she's gotten vocal responses from the pet. But that's not something we go down just because we know other people are testing it.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about psychic brainwaves because I think one of the big questions, mediumship, are they reading a person psychically? And then I always wonder, are given psychic abilities are real, which they seem to be I'm convinced,
Right.
pretty convinced based on the research, is the brainwave that holds our non-physical consciousness after death the same type of brainwave that people might communicate psychically and people might host when they're having a near-death experience or out of body. Have you ever tested psychic, for example, have someone mentally send it a word and see if it shows up, or go out of body and try to talk to another person through it?
Okay, lot of questions in there. The word thing we did online, meaning connected to us here in Arizona, another couple in New Jersey, and another couple in North Carolina. And he wrote a word on a piece of paper. None of us could know what the word was. And we asked the spirits, what word did he write on the paper? Answer came right in. He heard it, held up the paper. Sure enough, that's what he wrote. The word was zebra is what he wrote.
Zebra. That's pretty. Yeah.
We've had tests where people will do similar. We've done live demonstrations where we pick somebody in the audience, gave them a pen and paper, said, write a word on this. And then all the audience was up front with us. We had them go all the way to the back we were actually outside, all the way to the back and place it into a case in a box. And then we asked, this person who wrote it was the only one who knew what they wrote, didn't tell anybody. And the word came through every time I asked, but the word was so odd that nobody caught it. But then when I said, okay, what's the word? She brought it up and we reviewed the recording. The word was said 5-6 times, but we didn't catch it because it was actually a last name of some group or something, Peoples or something like that. But yeah, we've done those tests and they do work.
But you think that's the other side, non-local consciousness communicating or deceased consciousness? Or do you think there's a way like mind's ability to affect matter, like a living person could affect it and send information to it?
We believe it's disembodied consciousness. But if we are that same consciousness or fractional portion of it when we're alive, is that not possible for our spirit or consciousness to have abilities like that? Yes, it would be, which is how we believe psychics somehow through energy and vibration become porous enough to get that information. But we believe the human body plays a real filtering effect of what reality is. The brain is a filter of consciousness. We don't believe it creates it, but it filters it. People ask us, well, what do you think the veil is between the living and the dead? We believe it's the human body. We're not supposed to know what they're saying. We're not supposed to see them. We wouldn't be able to focus on the life we're here to live, grow, and learn if we had knowledge to all that. Our physical senses give us a dashboard that allows us to function on this planet, grow and learn. If we had access to all information, your brain would turn into an entropic soup. When you use a computer, you just go, oh, that's a folder. In that folder is files, and I can pick the file I want. But if you were viewing all the zeros and ones of data, it would be more than you could handle, and it would not allow you to operate. So we believe life works in that way as well.
It's really interesting. And we're going on an hour. Do you have a little time for a couple more questions?
Absolutely.
Great. So you know physics. You were raised by a physics teacher. Do you have any theories how this all works, like non-survival of consciousness in the first place? What mechanism? I don't expect you to be accurate, but what would you theorize?
Well, I mean, if you look at every scientific theory out there, there is a gigantic hole in every single one. If you look at materialism, they fight one major problem, and that's the hard problem of consciousness. They can't explain how things are felt, the taste of chocolate, what's the depth of my love, unmeasurable to them. The connection between consciousness and the brain. How come trees, rocks, water don't have consciousness, but the brain made up of similar elements and matter can have consciousness? That's where materialism falls apart. When you look at panpsychism believes that everything's conscious. Everything has consciousness. Okay, well, if my kitchen table has consciousness and I cut a leg off, does that leg now have its own consciousness? What happens if I reattach that leg to the table? How do two separate consciousnesses interact? Again, problem. Analytic idealism says that consciousness is the ontological primitive of life. It is there before, that all life is mental, and that consciousness displays everything that you see and interact with. And the be-all, end-all of life is mentation, which gets people going down the road that, oh, hey, we're living in a matrix. And, well, there are some things that could very well be similar in that method. But in order to answer the hard questions within different scientific theories, you have to choose one that opens doors instead of shuts them. And so that is what we're trying to do with what Staticom is producing, and the fact that consciousness has to play a vital role, which is where we see science evolving to with the theories that I went through of quantum physics, quantum consciousness. That's where it's heading.
So interesting. Yeah. And of all the evidence you've seen, all the experiences, is there, you've shared many remarkable, but is there one that stands out as just the most mind-blowing, a story you want to share that you saw or experienced?
Well, we've gotten some amazing responses that we just, shocked us and went, wow. But I'm hoping that we have not even come close to our limit, and wouldn't even want to say one as being the most amazing, because I am hoping those are yet to come.
And lastly, where do you see this going? Do you see it getting to the point where everyone just has one of these in our home? Like, this would be amazing. Like, it can sit at our dinner table and our loved ones can just come have dinner with us every night or join us at the holidays and just jump in on the conversations the way they always did. Do you think it's going to get that good?
Yeah, I think it will. And at some point, I think that's very possible. If you go back in history and you do research on like cell phones, people never believed that would become a true reality, but it did. And we can talk from anywhere, any place that a signal exists. Do I think that this could become a household item? Absolutely, I do. And then the next question is, okay, can it be more than voice? Can we find a way to include imagery? Can video be added? Can you not only hear them, but see them? Those are all possibilities. I don't have those answers. I don't want to claim to have those answers. I don't know. But they are paths of possibility that I think the future could hold. Maybe not in my lifetime, but I think they're possible.
Wow. So like having them there on Zoom, or like a hologram as if they're actually there?
Well, however they can present themselves. If you look at other people researching this, Dr. Annabelle Cardoso or, why is her name eluding me?
Sonia Rinaldi?
Thank you, Sonia Rinaldi. There's lots of work being done with imagery, both in still frame and possible tests with videography, and they can make themselves shown and noticeable by people who knew them and what they looked like when they were here. So do I think that could be possible down the line? Every time technology advances, it gives us additional tools to push the limits of stuff like this. So yeah, I think it is a possibility.
Amazing. And how can people, well, actually, let me ask, can people come test this with you? Are you holding workshops or groups? Is there ways people can experience this?
There is. Like I said, we just came back from the 2025 Phenomicon. People got to see it. Not only did we give a presentation, but we did a full lecture. In about 3 or 4 weeks, we're heading to Halifax, Canada, to the Paranormal Symposium hosted by PPRI. People can attend that. We have a ton of local events. Next month, we will be at the Superstition Mountain Museum giving a lecture and personal demonstration. We will be at the Orpheum Theater doing both again twice next month. There are listings on our website, entityvoices.com, that kind of breaks down where we're going to be, where we're at. And we had such a request for personal interaction. We are working on a virtual connection online where people can connect like you and I are connected through video right now, have it run online to allow them to ask their own questions. It's not out yet. There are further tests I want to do to make sure it's as operational as can be compared to doing it in person. Once I know that we've got that capability, that will become available as well.
And once that's ready, I definitely want to try it. Or if you make it to New York, or I'm in California quite a bit, one of those places,
absolutely.
I'm going to come try it.
We love to show what it can do, and we love to see the expressions when people ask a question that they're not expecting, and the response just flows through, and they're like, oh. But the other thing is grief.
Yeah.
They were losing a loved one, whoever it is extremely emotional on anybody, and it can literally affect them the rest of their life. To have people come up to you and go, that was the most incredible thing. I have been worrying about this and suffering from it for years. That one response has changed everything for me. Thank you. Greatest reward of doing any of this work is to get a response from somebody like that.
Wow, wonderful. And before we close out, is there anything I haven't asked you that you wish I had, or anything else?
Not that I can think of, but like I said, if you ever want to dive deeper, go further into questions of the research, let me know. We can always do a second part.
I would love to. Maybe when it's ready online, we can do a test and just see.
That can be done. In fact, we are doing that as well. We've got another 2 or 3 of them coming up. But yeah, would love to do that.
Let's do it. We can do it as an episode if you're okay with that.
Absolutely. I have no problem with that at all.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I know you said it, but just remind our listeners again the name of your website.
Name of the website is entityvoices.com. If you just go to Google and search either Tony Rathman or Staticom, it'll bring up pages of information, articles we've written, where we're going to be. The website's the compact version of it, but we've got Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. The social media channels are extensive. The website's got blogs of information, where we're going next, what we're working on, clips. If you want to see past stuff we've captured, YouTube, just type in Staticom, you'll get, 300 some clip of evidence, but those are the best places to check out what we're doing.
Well, thank you so much. I so appreciate you coming on. And all of you listening, stay on past the end because we will be playing the audio of the clips that Tony sent me, but the videos are better. So go to our social media and website for this episode, YouTube. They'll be everywhere so you can see them. Thank you.
If you want to learn how I went from being a skeptical atheist who thought there was zero chance of an afterlife to a skeptical atheist who thinks an afterlife is highly probable, come check out my books. WTF Just Happened.
Marcello, can you see us?
Yes.
Thank you. Marcello, you started this method. It's working. Can you please try to communicate with us?
Can you say Tony? Did you just say Rathman? Yep. So you know who I am. Can I know who you are? Yes, sir. Thank you. Who am I speaking to? How do you hear me speak?
Yes, he was shot. Lenin, did you know that you were shot? Do you have a message for your family? To your mom? I saw you how they shot you. Or shoot you. Lenin, kilala mo ba kung sinong bumaril sa'yo? Yes, para mabigyan ka ng hustisya. Kilala mo ba kung sinong bumaril sa'yo? Just give me the name, Lenin, so I can help you. Did you know how you were killed? Lenin was shot and killed last Monday.
Lenin, do you know who did it or not? Yes. Can you give a name, please? Let's start with first name. What's his first name? Christian. Had a name? Was Christian a name? Was Christian a first or last name? Okay, first name. Do you have a last name? Was that Rathman? Did you say Rathman? Yes. Am I speaking with spirits? Yes. How am I hearing you speak? Is it what you call energy of the mind? What do you like to be referred to as? Do you like to be known as spirit or consciousness? I think you said spirits. Did you say spirits? Say yes? Yes. Yes. Okay. How many spirits are with me right now? Can you give me a number? 6? All right. Well, thank you very much. Yeah. All right. Appreciate it. Up or down, Spirit? Seven. Okay. I can go at 7. Rathman, I heard you say Rathman. Yes. What did you want to say to Roger? It's Tony. Spirits, can you hear me? Yes, okay. That was a loud voice that just answered. What's your name? That's a strange name. How many spirits are here with us right now? A lot? A lot, yeah, that's what I thought you said. Because there's so many of you, is that why all the background chatter? They're talking? Do you have any messages for us? Rathman, I heard that.
To get more information on what the fuck just happened, go to WTFJustHappened.net. There you can order my book, WTF Just Happened, A Sciencey Skeptic Explores Grief, Healing, and Evidence of an Afterlife. You can learn all about how I came to conclude that there most likely is an afterlife, but you can also learn about the early stages of my grief and the amazing, fascinating people I met along the way. You can read about how much I harassed the mediums and scientists trying to get evidence to see if the mediums were cheating and see if what everyone was saying actually was true. You can also subscribe to our newsletter to stay updated on any new developments and any interesting new what the fuck updates. So if you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts. It makes such a difference, especially for a new podcast like this one. And if any of you have had a crazy what the fuck yourself, have any questions, feedback, or just want to say hey, reach out on either Instagram at WTF_just_happened_, or email me at hello@WTFJustHappened.net. I love hearing from all of you. It makes my day hearing your stories and questions and feedback and all of it. And remember, you don't have to draw any final conclusions as you wonder, what the fuck just happened?